so my presentation is on Creativity Inc. So each one of you guys have an envelope in front of you. We're going to start off doing something fun. You want to open it up?
Money?
Not money, Michelle.
You won a gift card last time, I mean, you still looking for
I still have money that, wait, I haven't used it yet. Soon.
We're going to do the quickest white outfit exchange you ever seen in your life. So you know how that works, right? Who has number 8, 7? Yeah? Come on up. All right.
Do I look in the bag?
You can open it up, yeah. Now you know you're going to be stuck with this because you're number 7. But who's number 6? What?
I'm fine with that.
Now you can either keep what you have or you can steal from Target. Everything. What do you got, Stassi?
Oh. The claw. Nice.
Nice.
Oh.
Who has number 5? Tyler. So you can either keep what you have or you can steal from either one of them.
My grandson.
Who's got number 4?
Oh, man.
Who's got number 4? And you can either keep what you have or you can steal from any of those if you want. Great.
Interesting. Go on, I love the rocks, I like the, keeping this.
2?
What are we doing?
A beach towel?
And number 1.
She was.
So what do we have?
I have a beach towel.
No, but what is it? Like,
That's so funny.
what is it?
A Moana.
Moana.
I like
And what do you
Moana.
have?
Mr. Incredible,
Mr. Incredible.
AKA my dad.
Joanne, what do you have?
Buzz Lightyear.
Buzz Lightyear. Tyler.
I've got cars, like in
Cars.
Like this.
I got you.
That's my dad.
You got me.
I got you, babe.
Stassi.
Yes,
Aliens.
yes, I got the alien.
What do you have? You know,
Toy Story 4.
Toy Story. So when you guys look at all of these, what do they have in common?
Toy Story?
No.
Toys.
Cartoons?
Pixel?
Mimics?
Pixar.
Pixar? Yeah.
Pixar. All right. Yeah. All right. So I did my presentation on Creativity Inc., which is written by Ed Catmull, shown in the picture. He is the president of Pixar Animation and Disney Animation. And in this book, he describes the unseen and destructible forces that can stand in the way of true inspiration, that can hinder creativity, and also success. Also, he explains how to overcome it. As Catmull states, it is an expression of the ideas that he believes makes the best in us possible. And here are the objectives of my presentation. We do a background on Ed Catmull, the work environment of Pixar. We discuss fear, trust, and failure, the hidden, honesty and candor, the brain trust and notes day, the hungry beast and the ugly baby, and my TPOB. So, growing up, Catmull had a dream to make his first computer animated feature film. He forged a partnership with George Lucas, and that led to him founding Pixar with Steve Jobs and John Lasseter in 1986. Then in 1995, Toy Story was released, which changed animation forever. It became the highest grossing film of the year, making $362 million worldwide. You can see John him in the picture there. So now what? So Catmull achieved his goal that had been his driving force his entire life. So that goal defined his personal life, and now he was left without one. So his internal sense of purpose was now missing. They began to work on 2 new films, which we all know, A Bug's Life and Toy Story 2, but he asked himself, would making one film after another engage me? Is this all there is? Is it time for a new challenge? So it was a difficult year after Toy Story was released, and then Catmull found his next challenge. And that was basically to protect Pixar from the forces that ruined so many businesses. So he began to see the need was not just to build a successful company, but to create a sustainable creative culture. So an essential ingredient in Toy Story's success and all the movies that followed is the unique environment that Cat Mill created and built at Pixar. It's based on philosophies that protect the creative process and also defy convention. So I have a short video here for you guys.
His insight is always like right there, like this is the thing that we know we need.
There's a real irony in who Ed is.
He really instills this idea that making mistakes is okay, failing is okay, because from that we learn.
And he challenges you. He doesn't tell you how to do it, but he challenges you to do it, and he encourages you, and he checks in.
You know, Ed is also a filmmaker. Ed is an artist. Ed understands all of us.
He saw that you can find beauty in a really strange puzzle, a language, mathematics, a language that is universal. There are no barriers with math.
So I don't know, it's such a, in a way, calming thing, but it's also a super brave way to run a company.
It's interesting, at Pixar, it's really our jobs to not grow up. It's our jobs to constantly be kids and to remind ourselves to be kids. And Ed is kind of like a caregiver for us in that way, but he sees that he's a caregiver that sees the value in it.
His willingness to kind of put himself in front of the firing squad, if you will, like when we make mistakes, and we make massive ones here. I mean, very expensive, massive mistakes, time and time again. And Ed has no problem standing up and admitting those mistakes and finds incredible strength in it.
When I think of Ed Catmull, I think of forgiveness, actually. And that doesn't just mean, you screw up and oh, it's okay. It's not that. It's something like it's everywhere in the culture. Fail often, fail early, learn from it, modify it, keep going, and that's how we innovate.
To create the culture that we have here at Pixar, where everybody matters. I mean, this is it's like a big family. There are lifers here. We have that in a company. It's rare.
One of the things Ed taught us, or taught me anyway, really early on was the value of people. That I used to think the idea was the most important thing, and I think Ed has learned, and I've since learned, that's actually the people who make these movies that are most important. When Ed came to the studio, there were some who wanted to close the studio down, but I think Ed, in his own way, got to know people and realized that the people here were extremely creative. They just didn't have the right leadership to succeed.
Since John and Ed came to Disney Animation in 2006, there's been a significant change in the overall culture at Disney Animation. And what he instilled was trust. And with trust came everything else. And I think that as you look at what's transpired over the last several years, the work speaks for themselves.
Ed is restless. He is constantly looking for the next thing, challenging the status quo, even when it's working. And that is exceptional, I think, to be that curious and always trying to push the boundaries of where you are.
There's this balance he has of sort of compassion and innovation. They're together. He never separates the two. And he is just as much engaged in the people that he's working with as he is with the ideas and the technology he wants to develop or what the studio needs. And I think that's why we're able to push further. I can't count the number of times they say we'd start a project and what it took to make that project did not exist yet.
I think that there's core ideas in Ed's approach to leadership and organization that transcend any one kind of organization. And I actually think that it can be boiled down into the idea that the we is absolutely smarter than the I.
There's a question that we keep asking in American society, which is a really flawed question, which is, am I a success or a failure? But it's the kind of question, if you look at Ed's behavior and you look at the culture of Pixar, he tends to avoid that question and instead to asks, what am I learning?
At Disney Animation, his legacy will be about unconventional, courageous leadership that transformed an organization to bring it back to its greatness.
I really do think Ed is one of the brave ones.
Ed is absolutely one of the brave ones.
Ed Catmull is one of the brave ones.
So in that video, they discussed many of the principles that led to their success, and I included some of them on this handout. Most of which I'll go over in the presentation, but there are just so many. And the whole book, honestly, could just be a POV. It's just a remarkable book. I just want to read it. Okay.
his insight is.
Alright, so let's delve further into the physical work environment of Pixar. So when building headquarters, Steve Jobs wanted a place that actually promoted basically unplanned collaborations and encounters. He believed that a building doesn't encourage collaboration, you'll lose a lot of the innovation and magic that sparks serendipity. And when people run into each other, they make eye contact with one another, and then things happen. So you can see, this is the atrium at Pixar and their headquarters. So the building was designed to make people get out of their offices and mingle in that central atrium, which you'll see in the middle there, with people that they might not otherwise see. Those who naturally isolate themselves are forced to have these great conversations with other people. And many of the offices are arranged in U-shapes with a central gathering area in the middle. So it brings that unplanned collaboration down to the smaller work size. And at Pixar, they believe that if you have a loose-free kind of atmosphere, it creates creativity. So people decorate their offices, whatever kind of front they want. And you can see, some people are in dollhouses, some people are in stores. So they have that freedom to create that. And yeah, free cereal bar. They have a movie theater, and that is John Lasseter's office there. So one important thing that Catmull learned early on is that communication should not mirror organizational hierarchy. And so for a decade, they had these meetings, and they're held at a long conference table. The table had so much power, and it actually declared that if you sit in the middle, that your ideas matter. If you sit at the ends, then they don't. So the farther away people were, the less they were speaking up. So when a meeting was accidentally moved to a smaller room with a square table, no one had a disadvantage. Ideas flowed, everyone felt involved, and Pixar has this fundamental belief that unhindered communication was key, no matter what position you're in. So it actually undermined their own principles. And he was blind to it, they all were, for over a decade. And after that realization, Catmull, he just had that table removed immediately. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And here's a closer look into life at Pixar. They have a 600 acres, and then they have like a seat there. This is the atrium, basketball court, soccer fields. They have an herb garden. And then another closer look at how they foster creativity. And with this work environment, they're able to create all these remarkably successful films. So they're doing archery with the movie Brave. See the guy in the middle? That is actually for WALL-E experimenting. What's down here in the corner is Ratatouille. They're doing some cell experiments there. Yep. And so having that work environment, they created all these remarkable films. Now let's examine fear. So Catmull expressed in his book that we must not be afraid of uncertainty, and we must learn to accept it. As a leader, it's vital to create a fearless culture. It must be safe for people to tell the truth. There must be less hesitancy, and people will then explore new areas. They'll identify these uncharted pathways, and then they'll charge them down. And by doing so, you're going to see things that you possibly wouldn't see. You may not like what you see, you might be confused by some things, but at least you explored the neighborhood, which is what they say at Pixar. And then if there's fear, there's a reason for it. So our job as leaders is to find the reason and remedy it. Trust is the antidote for fear. So trusting others doesn't mean that they won't make mistakes. It means that if they do, or if you do, you trust that they will act to solve it. And by sharing problems and sensitive issues with your employees, you give them a sense of ownership over the information. You make them partners and part owners in your culture. They do not want to let other people down or each other down. And trust will come. We have to just be patient, be authentic, and be consistent. Leaders must demonstrate their trustworthiness over time through their actions, and the best way to do that is by responding well to failure. You have to address that failure head on, and only when you do that does it give you a chance to grow. Failure is a manifestation of learning and also exploration. And if you aren't experiencing failure, then you're making a far worse mistake, is what Catmull said. You're actually being driven by the desire to avoid it. And by trying to avoid failure, by outthinking it, it just dooms you to fail. So a quick way to determine if your company has embraced a negative definition of failure, ask yourself, what happens when an error is discovered? Now on to the hidden. There will always be problems, and Catmull learned the hard way that many of them are hidden from your view. We must work to uncover the problems and assess our role in them, even if it makes us uncomfortable. So do not let success mask problems. You need to conduct a deep assessment, and if you don't try to uncover what is unseen and understand its nature, then you're just going to be ill-prepared to lead. The only way to get a grip on facts or issues, solve problems, and collaborate is by communicating openly and freely. Fears and instincts for self-preservation hold us back. We need to free ourselves of honesty's baggage, and by doing that, you can replace the word honesty with candor. Without candor, there can be no trust, and without trust, there can be no creative collaboration. The Brain Trust is one of Pixar's key mechanisms. They put smart, passionate people in a room together. They charge them with identifying and solving problems and encourage them to be candid with one another. So they go in saying, we have a goal, how can we get there, are there any ideas for it? Everyone is focused on the problem to solve and not on any hidden personal agendas. So during the Brain Trust, everyone's equal. There is no inhibition. Everyone can say what you think, and egos are left at the door. So no one is punished for a bad idea, and they actually think that there is an understanding that most ideas are just going to be bad anyways. So that's what they go in thinking. And so it is essential to apply as many minds as possible to the most difficult problems. And with that, we're going to move on to Notes Day at Pixar. So Catmull noticed that people began to feel that it was not safe or not welcome for them to share their differing ideas. Things change, and with that comes a need for adaptation, fresh thinking, and maybe a total reboot. And so they asked themselves, how do we tap into the brain power of our people? So on Notes Day, Pixar shuts down completely. It is organized around topics that are actually suggested by their employees. Discussion groups are led by a facilitator not outside of the organization, but is actually someone recruited from the inside. Everyone creates their own schedule. They can go to whatever sessions that are of interest to them, so it's not planned out for them. It brings the problems to the surface. It makes it okay for people to disagree. It's not an end point. It is considered a beginning. And Notes Day is proof that Pixar cares about their people as much as they do the finances. It shifts that culture, and it repairs it, and it makes it better going forward. And it's also a reminder that collaboration, determination, and candor never fail to let them down. The biggest payoff of Notes Day is that it makes it safe for people to say what they think. Everyone has a sense of ownership over the place and also the future. So it creates a we're all in this together feel. Everyone feels that they're part of the solution. Ideas that emerge on Notes Day change Pixar meaningfully and also for the better. So I'm going to throw a question out to you guys. Do you think that people or ideas are more important?
People, because they make the ideas.
You know, people? Yeah. So when Catmull asks this question in all of his lectures, he gets a 50-50 split chance. He's learned over the years that people and how they function are more important than their ideas. So Catmull went on to describe in the book the hungry beast and the ugly baby. So the ugly baby is this awkward, uninformed, vulnerable, and incomplete. It's full of potential, and it's pure. And with that, it needs nurturing, it requires time, and also patience to grow. A hungry beast, on the other hand, is basically a large group that needs to be fed uninterrupted diet of new material and resources in order to function. Requires a lot of attention, but it's a valuable motivator. So the key at Pixar is, for the beast and the babies to coexist. And as leaders, we need to protect the new ideas from those who don't understand that in order for greatness to emerge, there must be phases of not so greatness. So we have to protect the future and not the past. And on your handouts, I listed many of the principles from the books that can enable and it can protect a healthy creative culture. Like I said, there's so many TPOVs I could have used, but this is the one I wanted to share. Basically, unleashing creativity requires that we loosen our controls, accept risk, trust others, work to clear a path for them, and pay attention to anything that creates fear. And in summary, Creativity Inc. is overcoming the unseen and destructible forces that can stand in the way of true inspiration. It is essential to create a fearless culture. Trust is the antidote to fear. We must address failure head on. It gives you a chance to grow. There will always be hidden problems, and we must work to uncover them. We also need to free ourselves from honesty's baggage, replace it with the word candor. The brain trust is one of Pixar's key mechanisms for solving difficult problems. Note stay brings the problems to the surface, it shifts that culture, and it makes them better going forward. And we need to protect our new ideas and the future, not the past. And these are my references. And this may end. A little side note, here's me. I'm a Disney baby. So I go every year, but yeah, it's me at Pixar and Disney. Yeah, my nephew, and that was the Toy Story ride, and that was Buzz Lightyear ride, and yeah, cars. Woo. And you have any questions? Yeah.
So was the book written before the Disney acquisition or after? Do you know?
It was written after.
After.
Yeah.
So the environment is still thriving under new acquisition.
Yeah, the book is remarkable. I mean, honestly, he explains after every film, everything that happened, in sequence, all the problems that they encounter. I mean, he's very transparent about everything. And his goal is in writing this book is if I do it, I can share it with others, and then they can avoid some of those pitfalls. Organizations who tend to fail. Yeah, great book. Cool. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you. Make sure that you deliver the presentation feedback forms to each individual.